On this Monday, we enter the third week of Trump and Elon Musk's attempted coup. A quick correction before we continue. On the last show, I showed you a picture of Elon Musk passionately kissing Italy's neo-fascist Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. While the two of them are, in fact, friendly, this video of them performing what I can only describe as mouth-to-ass resuscitation, this video is, in fact, generated through artificial intelligence. They got me. I thought this was real. Thanks to my listeners who pointed this out. Leave a comment. I like to be corrected. This was a major mistake, and I'm sorry. It looks real to me. I mean, look at this. That is the state of artificial intelligence right now. So I quadruple checked, and this does seem to be generated through AI. So as we move forward, it's important to trust reliable news sources, reliably credentialed journalists, news organizations, professors, credentialed teachers, researchers, scientists, accountants, lawyers, doctors, nurses, public health specialists, and all the other authoritative fonts of wisdom who Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Viktor Orban, Vladimir Putin, Jair Bolsonaro seek to destroy. Because an ignorant people are a compliant and easily duped people. I also want to correct something I said on the last show. I may have left the impression that Elon Musk founded Tesla, founded PayPal, or SpaceX. The truth is Musk created nothing. He's just a bully with sharp elbows. Elon Musk didn't found Tesla or SpaceX. He merely muscled his way into these corporations after they were already established. The same way he muscled his way into Twitter, which is now worth 80% less than what he bought it for. And the same way he's going to muscle his way into our government if we allow it. Like most of you, I am having a visceral reaction to Elon Musk. How dare he? How dare his racist 20-somethings take control of our government, fire civil servants, and turn off our foreign aid? Where does the richest man in the world get off telling the United States we can't deliver famine relief or medicine to people in need? I go on walks to clear my head, but it only renders me angrier. And right now, rage, self-righteous indignation won't cut it. People like me, fueled by rage, are of no use. We need to rely on those who can remain focused and methodical, people who remember this is and always has been a game of inches. There are good people in this country. They outnumber the bad. I'm talking about the sober-minded grinders who have been fighting these mentally deformed monstrosities like Elon Musk and Donald Trump their entire lives. There are good people in this country, good people embedded in our civil service, raised by parents who taught them evil never sleeps. That while the moral arc of the universe bends, as Dr. King said, towards justice, people like Reverend Barber, AOC, Ralph Nader, Elizabeth Warren, Maxine Waters, and Bernie Sanders, they know that what is gained is sometimes lost, and what is lost, we discover again. This battle never stops. As Neil Young said, rust never sleeps. The right-wing oligarchs, along with their crypto-fascist, white Christian nationalists who we're up against, have been waging war on our country for decades, but they never attempted it at this magnitude. They never fought so brazenly. This contempt for democracy, scorn for the poor, unfettered hatred for marginalized people, and outright derision of American values has never been this blatant. There's no longer any artifice. Their ugliness is splayed right out in the open for all of us to see. We can no longer deny who these people are and what they want. They're taking everything because they want the moon and Mars. These are authoritarians, openly bigoted white supremacists attempting to turn our country over to those who believe they are genetically superior. You know, like the people who wrote our Constitution. The oligarchs, as well as the people who wrote our Constitution and Declaration of Independence, well, today's oligarchs want to take us back to the 17th century, to the 18th century. But they want to leave out the Enlightenment. You know, George Washington was the wealthiest man in America. And now the wealthiest man in the world is attempting to drag us kicking and screaming to before 1776, before the Enlightenment. The difference between Elon Musk and our founding fathers is our founding fathers knew they were deeply flawed, and that's why they left us a living and breathing Constitution that protects us from the people who wrote it. Elon Musk, on the other hand, is a product of apartheid-era South Africa, who, like Donald Trump, no longer hides how he was raised, the values he was taught. They are now openly flaunting racism, misogyny, and the genetic superiority of white Christian heterosexual men. And again, it's all being done out in the open, just like the Kennedy assassination. The genius, if you want to call it that, the genius of the Kennedy assassination was they didn't pull it off in the shadows. Yes, there were cover-ups after the fact, but that coup, and it was a coup, was out in the open. Kennedy's murder, the murder of Lee Harvey Oswald, all out in the open, and that allowed Americans to do their own research and draw their own conclusions. Chaos. The Kennedy assassination was a coup. What's going on right now is an attempted coup. It's all out in the open. Granted, we have no idea what exactly Elon Musk and his crew of bigoted 20-somethings are doing with our data, but it's not like we don't know they have it. And it's not like almost half this country hasn't given them their tacit approval. This isn't 9/11. This isn't Pearl Harbor. Because unlike even the Kennedy assassination, we all saw this one coming. It's been an 8-year slog since Trump infected our body politic. Unless you believe Elon Musk stole the election for Trump, and I'm not quite there yet, unless you believe Musk stole the election, what we've got going on right now is what the American people voted for. Granted, Trump won with a very slim plurality, not a majority, a plurality. Unlike Joe Biden in 2020, Trump didn't crack 50%. That's what all of the polling I'm looking at shows. I haven't seen a single exit poll that shows Musk might have stolen this election for Donald Trump. I know many of you think Musk did in fact steal it for Trump, and I understand that, and I will have an open mind. I know Greg Palast, who's been on this show. I know Greg Palast has been reporting on this. But the polling I'm looking at shows Trump won, but not by a majority. The American people lived under 4 years of Trump. They saw how he handled COVID, how his tax cuts increased our debt, punished the poor, while rewarding the wealthy. And the American people lived 4 years under Joe Biden. They witnessed the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, the CHIPS Act, COVID vaccines going out the door, the greatest economy in world history. And yet, a plurality decided to go with Donald Trump again. Not overwhelmingly, not a landslide, but if you go by the election results and the polling, Trump won. Not with a mandate, But you don't need a mandate to destroy a country. George W. Bush lost the popular vote and the Electoral College. Had they done a full recount of Florida, Al Gore would have won. That's a fact. But George W. Bush took the Supreme Court, handing him the presidency as a mandate to launch a 20-year global war on terror while cutting taxes for the richest Americans so that there was no there when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. You don't need to have a majority. You just need to want it more than the other guy. The truth is George W. Bush wanted it more than Al Gore. And you just need to seize the levers of power and then use those levers of power to bend the American people to your will. I don't, for one second, believe we're heading into Nazi Germany territory. I think Musk and Trump, I think they're going to fail. And I think they want to take us back to Chile in the 1970s under General Pinocohet, when Milton Friedman and the boys from the Chicago School of Economics went to Chile and privatized and ruined that country's entire economy. Trump and Musk want to pull off what the Chicago boys did to Chile. Straussian economics. Trump and Musk want to sell off vast chunks of the American government to the oligarchs, like they did in Chile, or El Salvador, and countless banana republics in Latin America. So I don't think we're heading towards Nazi Germany. I think we're sliding into Chile. I don't think it's Nazi Germany, but we can draw many lessons from Nazi Germany. Hitler was appointed chancellor in January of 1933, right after his Nazi party won just 33% of the vote in elections held a few weeks earlier in November. He won 33% of the vote in the November 1932 elections. By January of 1933, he was appointed chancellor. That's far from a majority, 33%. Trump, last November, got 49.8% of the vote. Trump, who is an authoritarian, ran as a fascist. He didn't call it fascism, but he ran as a fascist. Trump won with a bigger share of the vote than Hitler won in November of 1932. Americans knew what they were voting for. As chancellor, Hitler decided to call another election in March of 1933, just weeks after becoming chancellor. He won in November of 32. He becomes chancellor in January of 33, and he decides, let's hold another election in March of 33. Why did he call an election? Because he knew that having seized the levers of power, and with his brown shirts now working the streets, he would do much better, pick up more seats in the Reichstag than he had won in November of 1932. And Hitler was right. To quote Elon Musk, Hitler was right. But he was right about getting more votes. By March of 1933, the Nazis won 44% of the vote. They did a lot better. Not a majority, but enough for Hitler to take absolute control, 44%, which is still 5% shy of what Donald Trump won last November. So while the conditions do not compare to Nazi Germany, nor do the politics, I do believe, however, what you and I are up against right now is similar to what the German people were up against in 1933 and 1934. By that I mean a majority of us don't want this. We wake up every morning, we see what's going on, and we say, I don't want this. The same way a majority of Germans didn't want Hitler. A majority of Americans don't like Musk. A majority of Americans hate Musk. He polls very poorly. And despite some reporting you've been reading, Trump's polling, his approval ratings are underwater. But a vocal and highly subsidized plurality of Americans like what they're saying. The question is, does this heavily armed and heavily funded plurality of crypto-fascists living in our midst, do they want to destroy our republic more than we want to preserve it? As like everything in life, this is all about who wants it more. The people who want it more get it. Your boss isn't smarter or more talented. They just wanted it more. So this is what we're up against as Democrats. This is what anybody who opposes Trump is up against. I'm talking about liberals, neoliberals, leftists, socialists, Republicans who don't know what's happened to their party, disgruntled conservatives. We know that half of this country can't come up with $500 for an emergency. We all know that. So while Trump is busy painting America as an apocalyptic hellscape, we know deep down in our hearts, as Democrats, as defenders of the system, we know he's right. We know this country, this economy, the police, our schools, this government doesn't work for half our people. And for the people it does work for, it rots their soul. Our souls are rotting because of this inequality. Therefore, it's disingenuous for us to say everything was perfect until Donald Trump came along. Everything was far from perfect, which is why Donald Trump came along. But he's not the answer. He's just willing to overstate the severity of the disease, while his cure is just more of the disease. It's no coincidence that the entire right wing buys into or sells phony miracle cures. There's a lot of money to be had acknowledging the disease, but then offering phony, overpriced antidotes that make the rich richer by taking advantage of the ill-informed. You know, people who listen to Alex Jones, Jimmy Dore, and Joe Rogan. Kash Patel, Trump's pick for FBI, he is selling COVID vaccine detox pills. COVID vaccine detox pills. Pills that get the COVID vaccine, he claims, out of your system. He claims, take these pills and it'll get the COVID vaccine out of your system. It's no different from selling tax cuts or slashing government waste, selling that to the American people, or selling the elimination of DEI, or selling the torture of migrants. None of these magic potions work. In fact, they make the disease worse, because anytime you neglect the disease, the infection, the cancer, the virus, it festers. Trump and his cronies only have phony miracle cures that benefit them by destroying the rest of us. So what we, you and me, have to figure out is, how do we defend American values without coming off as the standard bearers of the status quo? Because politically speaking, preserving the status quo is a suicide mission. The status quo sucks. I don't want to be the standard bearer of the status quo. For-profit healthcare, institutionalized racism, sexism, and homophobia, corporations controlling what's in our food, air, and water. It's all indefensible, and Trump knows that. But his cure, the cure he's offering, will just make the indefensible far deadlier. Our side right now finds that it's really tough defending the post-war neoliberal world order that preserves the supremacy of our banks, fossil fuel industry, and weapons manufacturers. It's impossible and downright immoral to defend the status quo when our planet is on fire. Likewise, after January 6th, it was pretty difficult defending the status quo in Washington when both parties so obviously answer only to the oligarchs while ordinary people are left voiceless. January 6th was a violent insurrection, but a lot of Americans at the time wanted it. They still do, because they hate how unresponsive their government remains. But that insurrection, had it succeeded, would have made our government exponentially far more unresponsive to the American people than it already is. So I'm not here to defend the status quo. I'm here to tell you Elon Musk and Donald Trump are precisely why the status quo is indefensible. They are the ultimate beneficiaries of the status quo. They trash the very thing that makes them so wealthy. They are the ones who have a vested interest in seeing to it that the status quo gets even more unfair. Like Kash Patel selling those COVID vaccine detox pills, Musk and Trump are con artists who are in fact offering a revolution, but that revolution will usher in a far worse country, far worse for the 99% who are already suffering. Change isn't always good, but Silicon Valley celebrates the disruptor. They celebrate people who think it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission to break the law. Self-driving cars are against the law in San Francisco, but that didn't stop people, the Silicon Valley techno-fascists, from inundating San Francisco streets with self-driving cars, and they don't get put behind bars. They get permission, or they lobby Sacramento to pass laws that supersede the city of San Francisco. Sacramento is the capital of California. So Silicon Valley, the techno-fascists, didn't like that self-driving cars were outlawed in San Francisco, so they went to the capital and got laws passed that supersede the will of the San Francisco citizens. How many millions of lives have been destroyed in the wake of this poisonous ethos? Elon Musk, the Silicon Valley techno-fascists, the disruptors, Vivek Ramaswamy, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, they're not going to give you free health care. They're not going to give you free tuition at all public universities. They're not going to make the oil companies pay for the wildfires and hurricanes that they're responsible for. They're not going to bring down the cost of drugs. They're not going to provide free child care, free breakfast, free lunch to every child who needs one. They're going to claim that they want to lower defense spending, but they're going to increase it. They're not going to build low-income housing. They're going to marginalize the marginalized while enriching the already rich. They're going to loot federal, state, and local governments that are responsible for 40% of our entire economy. Nearly 40% of the American economy is what federal, state, and local government spends, which is why Trump, along with Musk and his rapacious pirates, are trying to loot the government as I speak. In 3 weeks, Trump and his cronies are already trying to destroy the guardrails that protect you and me from predatory lenders, foreign influence in our elections, and of course, the fossil fuel industry destroying our lungs and planet. I get the rage that you feel towards the status quo. I feel it. The same way I hate my kitchen. I hate my kitchen to the core of my very being. At my age, I should have a stove and a refrigerator and cabinets that work. I hate my kitchen. But letting some con artist come in with a sledgehammer to destroy my kitchen in return for his getting to keep the copper wiring and leaving me with a kitchen that I've hated for years, leaving me with a kitchen laying there in ruins, that isn't going to make things better for me. It's going to make things a lot worse, and he gets the copper wiring. Meanwhile, I'm racking up debt, ordering endlessly from Seamless, and I'm going to miss that horrible kitchen that I, in my impotent rage, allowed some con artist to gut and walk away with the copper wiring, leaving me with nothing. Well, the good news is Trump is failing. Trump is failing. Business Insider reporting a list. Go to Business Insider. They made a list of all his setbacks in the past 3 weeks. He fails at everything. He always fails. The question is, will he drag us down with him? He's failing. For example, a judge on Saturday blocked Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency from accessing our Treasury payment systems. A Massachusetts judge has paused Trump's illegal offer to buy out the contracts of all our federal employees. That's illegal. And don't forget the Office of Management and Budget being forced to reverse that massive funding freeze on trillions in federal grants and loans. A judge on Friday issued a stay on Trump dismantling U.S. aid. Trump was forced to back away from those 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada, and he's begun easing, allowing for exceptions on his new 10% tariff imposed on Chinese imports. Several judges this week blocked and scolded Trump over his executive order that attempts to reverse birthright citizenship. Why is this happening? The Washington Post reporting that the Congressional Switchboard is getting a record number of constituents calling their members of the House and Senate. They are specifically complaining about Elon Musk's attempted takeover of the federal government. Their number one complaint when they call the Congressional Switchboard is, nobody elected this prick. I don't think they use the word prick. Alaska Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski says the entire Senate normally gets 40 calls per minute from constituents. But the Senate now is getting 1,600 brand new calls every minute from angry citizens worried about their personal information being compromised by Elon Musk and his band of 20-something bigots. So, what are you going to do? The Wall Street Journal is reporting Trump is planning to fire thousands of employees over at the Department of Health and Human Services next week because, he says, there's no money. No money to protect our health, but Senate Budget Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham on Friday says his budget proposal is to spend an additional $175 billion over the next 4 years to detain and deport undocumented Americans. $175 billion over the next 4 years. That means windfall profits. Windfall profits for Core Civic and the Geo Group, the two largest for-profit private prison companies in America, who just happened to have donated millions last year to Donald Trump and the Republicans. This is, as the mafia calls it, a bust out. Remember in The Sopranos when Tony busted out Davy's sporting goods store? This is a bust out. You may phone the United States Capitol switchboard at 202-224-3121 and ask to speak to Lindsey Graham, to leave a message. Call your senator and member of Congress. Call your senators, call your members of Congress. Get on the phone. Leave a message. Be polite. Don't be a crackpot. That just reaffirms everything they already believe about us. You don't have to sound smart. In fact, you can stumble through your message. Authenticity wins the day. You don't need to read some message. Just tell them how you feel and what you want. 202-224-3121. I mean that. When you call and just read something, it looks like AstroTurf. Sounds like AstroTurf. Just from the heart, without screaming. You may phone the White House. To leave a comment, call 202-456-1111. To leave a comment at the White House, call 202-456-1111. The White House switchboard is 202-456-1414. If those numbers are busy, means democracy's working. Keep calling. Go online, get the addresses for the president, for your member of Congress. It's really easy to write postcards, and it's good for your mental health. We did this before. We defeated the fascists, the authoritarians, in 2020, and we're going to do it again. But you have to fight. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Thank you very much for finding me. This has been the Mop-Up. I'm David Feldman, coming to you from New York City. Please share this episode. I'm doing a yeoman's job trying to promote this show because it's like spitting in the wind. This is not the kind of show that gets seen right now. So I'm clipping parts of the show. I'm doing a better job trying to promote this. I need your help. I'm not part of some podcast conglomerate. Nobody's helping me other than Robert Smigel and Sam Cedar. My audience is helping me, so I can't keep this going without you copying and pasting the link to this episode and sharing it. You can find me these days on Blue Sky. My handle is The Mop-Up. Please subscribe to this channel As you know, I'm a little erratic when it comes to my times, so hit the notification bell. A lot of you are hitting the notification bell. That way you know when a new episode is up. Leave a comment. I read all your comments. As you can tell, I use this show to make some corrections that I would not have known had my listeners not corrected me. I don't mind being wrong because I have no choice. I usually am wrong. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room for keeping the conversation civil. This is an audio podcast, and if you want a transcript of this show or all my other shows, you can go to iTunes, and a transcript free of charge is provided on the Apple iTunes app. If you want to read the show as it's happening, listen to this as a audio podcast on iTunes and subscribe to my newsletter. Thank you. I'm probably going to do another show tomorrow. Thank you for listening.